You can do anything. But what you gonna do for it? How you gonna move for it? What you gonna be?
Hey everybody, welcome to A-Train Bets. I am the A-Train and I make bets. And that is what we are going to be learning about today. We're going to talk about baseball betting because it's summertime. Baseball is in full swing and there are a lot of opportunities. Now, a lot of what I do is positive EV, data-driven advantage sports betting. But before you worry about any of that stuff, I've got this whole series on the basics of sports betting because I want you to understand the ins and outs of just simple, what are the mechanics? What is sports betting all about? How does this all work? And what is available to me? And learning those basics before you try to become a sharp sports bettor, I think is really important. So today we want to talk about baseball betting, and we want to look at the different kinds of bets that are available. And so here, don't get overwhelmed. This is just a listing of prices that are available on a particular Major League Baseball. So if we look at, we're going to be looking at Major League Baseball here, popular leagues, and we're just using OddsJam because they have a great listing of the kinds of different lines and markets that are available. And so here we can see, for those of you who are really getting just started with sports betting, money line is who's winning the game. So the money line is going to be like who wins the game, and the prices are going to be set in such a way that when there's a favorite, that price, those odds are going to cost you a little bit more to win the same amount of money than when there's an underdog. You bet the same amount of money, you can win more money. And that's how they mitigate that, so that a sportsbook is always interested in having a relatively equal amount of action on both sides of the bet, both outcomes of the bet. And so a money line is set in such a way where the outcome is clearly defined, who's winning, the prices are more flexible. You compare that with a spread market. So we see spread markets. These will also be called lines occasionally, or they'll be called run lines in baseball. They all mean the same thing. And what that is a score differential. If you're familiar with football betting, you'll see spread bets all the time because the score differential is where you have the flexibility on the scoring side, but you're holding firm or firmer because there still can be some variance in the prices, but the prices are much more equivalent on both sides, but the scores are different. So again, sportsbook is interested in getting action or bets on both sides of this and relatively the same amount of money, really. And that is how they control for that. So they'll have one side, they're flexing on the score, one side they're flexing on the price, but you have options and all of that. So now with everything being so computerized, it used to be like you pick, okay, do I want the money line bet? There's one offered. Do I want a spread bet? There's one offered. Now you'll get a whole bunch of different spread bets. Obviously, there's money line is basically a spread bet at zero. So you can only really offer one, but you can offer different time frames for that. So you can see this. You could offer individual innings. First half is also the first 5 innings. So you'll see that listed as first 5 innings, or you'll see that first half in some books. So here it's listed as first half. 3-way, you can also bet, okay, is it going to be tied, or is one team going to win or the other team going to win? So if you see a 3-way, that typically is what it means, tie, or one team winning or the other team winning, or individuals in different markets. But in baseball, that's what you're going for. And then the different money lines for different time frames. So they've really, because everything is computerized now, they can offer so many more different markets than they ever used to be able to, because it's all derivation. It's all just math behind the scenes. And so that's where there's a lot of different opportunities. And as sharp sports bettors, we will try to take advantage of as many of them as we can. But it all just comes back down to understanding the basics. And so we've talked about the spread. That's the outcome of the game, which team is winning. On the total side, what we're going to see is this is all about the collective score. So again, if you're familiar with football betting, any real sport that has a total is basically summing up both teams' scores. So if the Mets beat the Yankees 3-2, the total on that game is a 5. And just like in our spreads, you can have different time frames. You can have different kinds of calculations. So most of the time when you think totals in baseball, you're thinking about runs, but you can also think about hits. You can think about, we're going to combine hits, runs, and errors. So if you're familiar with like player props in basketball, especially, you have a PRA, which is points, rebounds, and assists. Similarly here in the totals markets, you can have total hits plus runs plus errors, and that'll all get summed up. It's all just different ways of combining different outcomes in a game to create wagering opportunities. So the sports books have learned the more wagering opportunities you give to people, the more they bet on stuff. And so they do that. Player props, again, player propositions. This is about an individual's outcome in a particular game. So how many bases do they get through their hits? So a hit is, player gets a single and then steals second base. A player bases is a 1 on that because it's on their hits. So it's an important thing to know. I may or may not have lost a bet one time and was like, I thought I won that bet. And then I had to learn what player bases meant. And so that is what that is. And so you got hits, you've got another combination type of thing. I mean, these are all relatively evident if you understand baseball, but we'll get into the mechanics of actually betting, some of the simple ones at least, here in a moment. The other thing to note, you have team markets, and so you're looking at team total. So this is just for the one team on a side. And so, like, if the Mets are playing the Yankees again, you could say the first first three innings team total for the Mets could be, over or under 1.5 or whatever it is, and you could bet on that. Again, first half is first 5 innings. And then first inning to score, that's a bet that you'll see commonly with a plus EV opportunity. That one is just first inning, over under 0.5. Sometimes you'll see 1.5, and you'll have odds appropriately with those. Futures market, not based on specific games, but based on longer term outcomes, which are things like, division winners, Cy Young Award winners, home run leaders. I mean, these are all kinds of things that are going to happen over the course of a season. These are things that you probably won't see as much EV action on if you're a positive EV or sharp player, because you're going to lock up your money for a long period of time, and it's a lot more variant, but they can certainly be fun. Like, I mean, if you're not occasionally putting on a bet for your favorite team to go win the World Series, like, you're probably not sports betting. Like, who hasn't put that kind of bet down, right? So that's an important thing. And then there could be what are called game props a lot of the time, but first team to score is one where it's like, it's not based exactly on the innings or the time. It's not based exactly. It's based on some other event. And so that's something that you'll see. All right, so let's get into something simple. Let's look at the money line here. We're going to bring in the money line, and this is just odds jam screen. So what you're going to see here is, like I explained, you're going to have differing prices on the outcome. So what this means when you see these prices listed, and this is really what I think is the most important thing to take away here. Don't worry about all these prices of the right and how each book is different. You probably understand that. But in this case, we're seeing, okay, the likelihood of the Mets winning is probably greater than the Cincinnati Reds winning, because if I bet $10, I'm going to get less than $10 back. I'm going to get about half of that back. Versus if I bet $10, I'm going to get a little less than twice that back in winnings if the Cincinnati Reds win. And so that's kind of how you see it. In some cases, you can confidently say, in this case, the Tampa Bay Rays are less of a favorite over the Yankees than the Mets are over the Reds. And so you can see that, and you can use that. And we'll bake in more math as we actually place bets. But in this case, when you're just trying to understand what do these numbers even mean, there's so many numbers. Focus in on the things that really matter, because there's so much noise. And this is not uncommon in gambling at all. You go to a craps table, it's like, what in the world is all of this stuff? Here, really what you want to understand is each of these are different books. Each of these are just different odds that you can place. So if I wanted to place and say I have an account at Caesars and New York Mets, now if I had an account at Fliff, I'd probably want to play at Fliff because it's minus 185. At Caesars, it's going to cost me $19 to win $10. Whereas at Fliff, it's going to cost me 18.5 to win that same $10. And so in that case, you'd probably want to go bet at the place where it costs you less, right? And so similarly, Cut in this case has a plus 179. We'd like to use Cut over, Caesars at a plus 158. We'd get $17.90 back for our $10 wager versus getting back $15.80 for our wager at Caesars. So that's how the prices matter. And that's what we ultimately use to define positive EV opportunities. But just in understanding how to place a baseball bet, that's pretty simple. I also want to show you on the Major League Baseball, I want to show you the simple run line. So let's look at where now we're going to hold the prices more consistent, though you're still going to see some variation. But now we're going to be looking at the difference in the scores. And so in this case, looking at the Cincinnati Reds and the New York Mets, again, see how these prices are similar, even though before we saw, the New York Mets are definitely a favorite here. But here we're saying it's going to cost you $12 to win $10 at Caesars. You can see the little icon. But the Mets have to win by over 1.5. And so you can't win by 1.5. So you're either going to win with -2 or more, or you're going to lose with them winning by 1 or less, or losing the game effectively. And so that's where this allows you to bet a more consistent dollar amount, but allows you to have different kinds of action. And so, and again, these run lines, you could find a bet, I'm sure, for New York Mets -2.5. You're really confident in the New York Mets. That -2.5 might be at a plus 115. where that extra run now makes the Mets an underdog, because you could also get Cincinnati Reds plus 2.5. That's probably at a minus 125 or minus 130. And so that's where, if you understand how these things flex, you can understand, okay, this is what we might want to play. And if you're like, I think they're going to win by 4 runs, you can go get a nice plus, 400 or something on that. And so those are the kinds of things where once you understand the math and you understand what these odds mean, and realizing, like, a lot of times everybody's talking about, like, if we bet 100, then, or if you bet $120 and you win 100, I'm like, no, bet $12 to win 10. Like, until you really understand that and you think about these odds in your sleep, like I do, don't try to bet $100 on these games. Just learn the mechanics, bet small amounts, understand what's happening, never place a bet that you don't understand. Right. And I imagine most of us have done that at some point. It's never a good idea. Don't place a bet you don't understand. So take the time to learn these things and you'll be better off. And so let's look at one more market. And in this case, let's just see if we can't do something a little bit more exotic. Let's look at a player hits. Let's do player hits. I just want to show you on a typical screen. Now, you can source your data from anywhere. I think OddsJam is the best, but this is a place where you can see different kinds of lines and different opportunities. And so in this case, what you'll see is, in this case, Cincinnati versus New York Mets, Brandon Nemo is... The line here is set at about 1.5. You can bet to the over or to the under. Now, this is the OddsJam algorithmic line saying this is what we think the true market line should be. And then you see additional prices that come from different other providers. And so you can see here, Caesars isn't offering particularly good deals compared to our Novig lines, but Caesar and Novig just means what would the price be if you were just betting with your friend and there was no sports book to take a cut, right? So you don't get those all that often. But at Caesars here, you could say, okay, if I bet $10 that Nemo has more than 1.5 hits, I'd win $17.90. Or I could bet $27.80 to win $10 if Nemo is less than 1.5. And so that's the kind of thing that you'll see. And, at a tool like OddsJam, you can see best odds. So that'll tell you, hey, if you want to bet a certain thing, like maybe you're the cousin of Brett Beatty and you want to go bet him to the over that day because you're going to go to the game or whatever. Like, you don't have to be the cousin. You just go and want to watch your favorite player and root for them. Hey, there's nothing wrong with that. Bet $16.50 at BetMGM versus $18.50 at DraftKings to win the same $10 should Brett Beatty go over 0.5. And so these kinds of understanding will help you become a more knowledgeable bettor in just even the very basics. But to understand how these odds work, and you'll start to understand the patterns between baseball and football and soccer and tennis and all these other places that in different sports that you can place bets on. When it comes down to spread betting, line betting, run line in Major League Baseball is what it's often called. You got totals, you've got player props. You'll start to see all of these different kinds of bets are very similar, although each sport has their own intricacies. So with that, I think we'll call it a video for that, to give you those basics of sports betting, basics of baseball betting. And that, I think, hopefully will make you a little bit more confident as you go out and make your own bets on baseball. So with that, if you enjoy this content, please like and subscribe. Follow my live streams every morning where I'm placing data-driven positive EV wagers with OddsJam, 7:30 a.m. Central Time, and I show you my work. I'll show you my results. And so please follow that. Check out the live stream. Learn about OddsJam. Learn about all of this. And if you are interested in buying OddsJam, please go to my link, atrainbets.oddsjam.com. And if you do, I will give you a money machine calculator that is will help you assess markets, help you create positive EV plays or find positive EV plays that are out there, and it'll help support this channel and my efforts in creating this educational videos. So with that, thank you all so much. Good luck betting baseball, and we'll see you at the sportsbook. We'll see you at the field. We'll see you somewhere, but definitely go make some money. Take care, everybody.